Up next on VIC, noon to 1, it's the place to be. Talking sports with the MVPs, that's Miller, Vicari, and Passante. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, whatever you need. The MVP show where you need to be. Sports radio on VIC, that's MVP. Sundays on VIC, that's MVP. Sports Talk Radio, VIC.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the MVP show for March 7th, 2021. Alongside Brennan Miller and Dan Passante, I'm John Vicari. A huge Sunday in sports today. We have a lot to talk about. It's been an eventful week in terms of a lot of things and a lot of sports ranging as well. We got baseball back, a lot of stuff going on in basketball world, a lot of stuff going on in the hockey world. How are you guys doing?
Good, man. Fresh out the gym, so I got that that post gym high that you get.
Sure.
Like when you the serotonin is serotonin. That's absolutely not what it is. No. Jeez. Oh
wow.
Boy.
Already off to a great start, and you're watching us on YouTube or listening on VIC Radio Ithaca. Really no way to segue out of that, Brennan.
Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing
You
great.
skipped him, John.
Oh,
You
Dan?
skipped him.
I think Dan's doing great.
I'm doing really good in the hallway. I'm afraid to follow that up. Quite honestly, I have my dyno lamp that's lighting the hallway right now. So thank you to the little kids section of Target for providing that to me.
Yep, and that's for the lighting on the visual side. And where we start today on this Sunday is the event for this Sunday, and that's the NBA All-Star Game. At the beginning of the season, it wasn't scheduled that an NBA All-Star Game would even take place. It wasn't in the original plans for the 2020-2021 NBA season. But after deliberation regarding the event between the NBA and the NBA Players Association, they decided that a game would happen this year. Instead of making it an All-Star weekend, it's really an All-Star jam-packed Sunday where the usual three-point contest, skills competition, and dunk contest will all take place on the same night as the game, where it's usually reserved for the Saturday beforehand, but it will all be today on Sunday. And we'll give you our picks for every event of the All-Star Game as well as the game later on in the show. But I want to get everyone's reaction to if this game should even be played or not. Because the original reaction about a month ago from the players, most notably Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James, was negative. LeBron James said he had zero energy and zero excitement for an All-Star game. And Kawhi Leonard said, quote, "It's money on the line, just pouring money or just putting money over health right now, pretty much." Both of them were quoted. Other notable stars who were against this are Giannis Antetokounmpo. One who was for it or really couldn't take a stance was Chris Paul, who was the president of the NBA Players Association, and he really just played, I think, both sides when dealing with this and asked in a press conference, and this again was earlier in February, but Chris Paul pretty much said that he hears the players' concerns and has addressed it with them, but the plans are going to stay, what they are, which is an All-Star game coming on March 7th, 2021. So I want to get both your guys' opinion on this. For me, I think it is exactly what the players said. It's a money-making business. Last year's All-Star game generated $15 million for TNT, and the NBA lost a lot of revenue from last season and revenue from this season because in not all arenas there aren't fans. More teams so each day and each coming day as we get into the season where fans are starting to make an impact and starting to attend games, but still lost revenue in terms of a league perspective. So of course this is putting money over health. Now, to the NBA's credit, during this season, the health of the players has been, I believe, a top priority of theirs, and few, if any players, or not if any, I should say, there are a couple on a weekly basis actually that will have to sit out due to maybe not COVID, contracting the virus, but being in a close contact with someone and be putting on the COVID-19 reserve list. So it has still been an issue, but not so much where games are getting postponed or there's West Coast trips that had to be canceled for certain teams. There hasn't been that big seismic schedule change like there was throughout the NFL season. So, in my opinion, the NBA has done a good job corralling this. I understand the players not wanting to do it because they came into the season thinking, well, this is something we don't have to do, and then it was thrusted upon them that, yeah, you have to do it. So I can understand their concern and just unwillingness to compete in it. But Dan, I want to start with you, and I know, Brennan, you'll give your thoughts as well. What is your reaction to this game coming down? Obviously, on the day of, you're going to have some excitement, and we're eager to watch and pick it, but do you think it's the right move?
Well, I'm not the one who has to play in it. And for that reason, I think, well, one of the reasons, should they be taking a break where players are leaving their teams, leaving their bubble, and going home and then returning? It's just not a good idea. Scientifically, to go out and potentially be exposed and then come back to your team. But the players really don't want it. And I think there comes a point where you have to ask yourself, what do the fans want and what do the players want? And I don't know. It just doesn't seem like – it's kind of like, when you're going to, like, hang out with, people and you're just not in the mood. That's kind of what the NBA is. It's kind of like a party. It's like, I'd rather just stay home, But that's not how the business of basketball, how the business of sport works. They have a TV contract, I'm sure, that they have to fulfill, and that's why they're doing everything on Sunday night. So I understand why it's going on, but, really, should it? I don't think it's safe for the players, obviously, to have everyone leave and come back. And if the players don't want to do it, no. So morally, no, but I understand why they're doing it for the business side.
Hey, Dan, I'm just going to hop on, and you said one specific thing. It's like when you don't want to go out, and then you end up going out to a friend's house or going out, whether it's to Mooney's or whatever. The question is, once you go out, don't you usually have a good time? I think that while the players, all their gripes and the fact they're not upset or they are upset about having to go play this game, I think that's very valid, and I think that they make good points. But I think that once the competition starts, because these guys are naturally competitors, I think that all gets thrown out the window. I think that we're going to see guys that want to play, especially with the ELAM ending. I'm not sure if I believe they're doing the ELAM ending in the actual game where, once a certain team or once the fourth quarter expires, you add 15 points to the winning team's total, and then the first team to get to that total wins a game, which makes the game a lot more exciting. And we saw it introduced in the basketball tournament, of which I am a very, very avid watcher of, because Boeheim's Army, usually pretty good in that. But I think that it's going to come to the point where these guys are going to show up to this All-Star day, essentially, because all the events are on the same day, and then their competitive side is going to take over. We're going to see guys. I'm going to spoil a pick for the end of the show, but we're going to see Steph Curry shoot perfectly from beyond the arc. We're going to see all these guys compete in the dunk contest, looking to win. We're going to see these guys compete once the All-Star game starts, and I think that's what it is. You end up going out and you end up having a good time.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, because a couple of days ago was the draft in which Team LeBron and Team Durant picked who from the collection of All-Stars who they would want on their teams, and it's something I think everyone loves doing, drafting teams, whether it's on the schoolyard, picking your friends, and, picking captains. And it was played out like it has been in the last couple of years. And Durant and LeBron, who were both very adamant in their disagreement for this All-Star game a month ago, I wouldn't say were ecstatic on the TNT draft broadcast, but they certainly weren't doom and gloom when picking these teams. So, Brennan, I think a really good point there. And the All-Star game is for the fans, in my opinion. It's not not that the players should, and we touched on their feelings being validated. And of course, and especially when the Players Association at the beginning of the season told them it was something not to worry about. And then it came up, I would say, not even midway through the season, about 1/4 through the season, that yes, there would be an All-Star game at the halfway point. So I can understand that discontent, but also knowing who it's for. It's for the players. And in the long run, it is for the players because it benefits their brands and everything, because, as I mentioned, the TNT-generated advertiser money comes in, as well as the viewership numbers for the All-Star game are higher than probably every regular season game up to this point, especially in this COVID-19 pandemic where sports ratings have been lower than they usually are, and that has been the case with the NBA this season. Not a dramatic change in viewership for the negative for the NBA, but down 1, 2, or 3% in certain windows on ESPN and TNT. So this All-Star game is important for them as well. And another good point that both of you mentioned was, again, when you get into the atmosphere of playing there, they're probably going to forget, why they weren't there. Once the juices get pumping, I think there'll be a change of heart. And I appreciate that, because they could easily just not care and embarrass the NBA on a global stage, but I don't think that will be the case. And also the rule changes for the NBA, even though I think it should be East versus West, and that should be every All-Star game. The rule changes made last year's game very exciting towards the end with the altered scoring to make the game closer, and it came down to a actual basketball game being played instead of just, dunks and alley-oops, which is fun as well and what the fans want to see, but it was an actual basketball game at the tail end of the All-Star game event last season, and my boy Kyle Lowry won the game by forcing a foul in an All-Star game, which is something you never see, but was the case for last season. So, and again, this is 3 fans, or maybe 2 fans, Brennan, because I know how you feel about the NBA, but
you're right.
Yeah, but the NBA, I think, again, it will be something in which maybe it shouldn't have happened morally, semantically, optically, but once it gets going, a lot of people are going to have fun.
You're already at Mooney's, John. When DJ Washburn puts on Icy Girl, you dance to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it goes.
Wow. Anything else you want to add, Dan?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the players will have fun. I think that they could. I just think there's a pandemic going on. I don't think they should be going home and traveling more than they need to. That's all I'm saying. But yes, I do agree with you that it'll be fun. Hopefully they don't get COVID.
No, yeah.
Genuinely, I hope that. But we'll see what happens. I'm not expecting a disaster, but I'm just trying to think of safety here, which I don't know if television contracts always think of that.
No, of course not. And Dan, you bring up a valid point too, because we mentioned the team LeBron versus Team Durant, but for these skills competition and especially the dunk contest, those aren't NBA All-Stars. All 3 people in the dunk contest are separate people they're bringing in. If it was the top flight stars from every team, that's a risk as is, but now you're bringing in multiple people who aren't even involved in the game just for a certain skills competition. Now, it's not the same as bringing 6 teams to one event and not having a bubble. It's players from all different teams individually, and if, one member of the team is affected on, like say, for example, Luka Doncic comes and the Mavericks do have a COVID case, if he wasn't there, it's not a problem. And it wouldn't be a problem if one player where the whole team is wiped out. But it's still a risk, as you mentioned, Dan. And again, I think the main conclusion we have here, and we talked about the players' feelings towards it and the interest of fans, this and that. This is, of course, money over health. However you want to look at it, if you think it's the right decision, if you think it's the wrong decision, I think that is something that is 100% universal. Of course it is. That's why the All-Star games were created in all four major sports and other sports as well, because fans love it. It's seeing at the time when they were created, it's seeing the players that you never got to see if you were on the East Coast, seeing the West Coast superstars play, your players on the East Coast, and seeing them duke it out in whatever sport. And that's why it was created. And then from there, a home run derby, a 3-point contest, a shootout challenge. There's multiple layers that have been added for fan enjoyment. But of course, this year more different than any other and something to consider. But of course, NBA All-Star Game happening tonight. TNT, the coverage starts at 5 p.m., even though the game doesn't tip off till 8 because of the pregame festivities as well. And the dunk contest is actually at halftime of the NBA All-Star Game, which I think will be a different twist, I think. Maybe it will, I hope it won't be rushed, but it doesn't need to be a long thing. It's pretty much at the max a 20-minute event.
Well, Dwayne Wade's not refereeing, so we won't.
No, he's not the judge.
Right, we won't get any blatant misqualifications of dunks. So. So
Yes.
that's always a positive.
Hopefully they fix the system where not everyone gets a 10 and then it's like, oh, this has been going on for too long. Let's give someone a 9.75, like the case last year. But there you go. And again, you'll get our picks for everything happening with NBA All-Star Sunday later in the show. But right now, we will take a break. You're listening and watching the MVP show on YouTube and VIC Radio Ithaca.
VIC Radio is the voice of Ithaca College. Here's a campus organization you can get involved in.
Want to help bring a little more love to your campus community? IC Random Acts of Kindness Club meets every Monday from 8 to 9 p.m. in the Business School, room 104. Stop by to socialize, participate in fun events, get creative, and be kind. For more information, please email randomactsofkindnessic@gmail.com.
Want to get your organization's message on the air? Email community@vicradio.org to connect with the Campus Community Involvement Director.
Hey besties, if you love VIC Radio as much as we do, you want to know what's going on in the studio, or you want to stay in the VIC loop, why not follow us on our Twitter @VIC Radio and our Instagram, which is also @VIC Radio. Keep listening to the best of What's Next, your favorite indie music station.
Welcome back to the MVP show on YouTube and VIC Radio Ithaca alongside Brennan Miller, Dan Passante. I'm John Vicari. We just talked on the NBA All-Star Game, and now we're going to talk a little NFL news. Although it's March, the NFL really doesn't have, in my opinion, an off-season when it comes to news, and there being a shortage of news. This week, a lot of headlines that we want to touch. Where we'll start, of course, was earlier this week, J.J. Watt finally made his decision where he was going to go. Did he pick Brennan's Packers? Did he pick Dan's Bills? No, he went to the Arizona Cardinals, of all teams. How this was announced and broke to the public wasn't through Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport. No, it was J.J. Watt wearing an Arizona Cardinals shirt. He posted it on his social media profiles, and then the NFL world just blew up. People did not really put the Cardinals in that top 3 for a long amount of time. As it got closer to that decision, the Cardinals sort of started gaining traction, but pretty much out of left field.
John, the Cardinals weren't in the top 10 but the day before he announced it. This was just absolutely out of nowhere. I know that there are odds charts, or there were odds books that did not have odds for the Cardinals because they were so out of consideration to get J.J. Watt. And then here's me and Dan sitting here waiting, expecting him to sign with one of our teams because that's just, that would have made great television. And I think JJ knows that because obviously this is the show that people watch on their Sundays for NFL football news. He knows that it would have been great television for us, and then just absolutely nothing. Now we're both sad, and I hope that he can live with that.
Do you think you're funny, JJ Watt? Like, you think this is funny? Does JJ Watt appreciate doing this to two fan bases that really could have maybe won him a ring, but instead he decides to go to the 8-8 Arizona Cardinals? Just the epitome of middle of the road last year. And I don't know. I guess what's great for the Cardinals is it's only a $4.9 million cap hit, and I think that's what's really nice for them. There's a lot of incentives. A lot of money will be added on if he gets a certain amount of sacks, for example. But JJ is later in his career, and he certainly has a better shot on the Cardinals than the Texans, but that's really not saying much. He would have had a much, much, much better shot if he had joined the Packers or the Bills. But hey, if he wants to go make his money, if he thinks he has a nice shot in Arizona, I wish him luck, and I hope we are the team that knocks them out of the playoffs next year because, I don't have time for this, okay? We're in AFC Championship games. I don't have time for J.J. Watt. I got better things to worry about than this guy right now.
Wow.
Well, and the part that I didn't like either, then on Friday, he posts pictures of him, like, sitting in an ice, like cutting ice out of a lake and then just sitting in it. It's like the Packers love cold weather guys. Can you imagine what would have happened if he posted that, like, I don't know, like a week ago? Packers Twitter would have been blowing up. It's so sad. It really is. It makes me upset because I really thought he was going to come home. Did the Packers have cap space for this? Absolutely not. Did the Bills have cap space for this? Absolutely not. But it would have been so much fun if they were able to, find it, because I know the Packers can have guys that they can cut on that defensive line. I mean, they signed I almost said J.J. Smith, but J.J. Watt, and they would then probably cut Preston Smith because he hasn't played up to the money that he's being paid. But the fact that he went on for so long, just like tweeting random stuff, and like making people think that maybe he was going to go somewhere, and maybe like everything that he said had some impact on where he was going. Like at one point, he tweeted a picture of him squatting, and not the picture where he announced he was going to the Cardinals, but he posted a picture of squatting, and there was 315 pounds on the bar. So people were like, "Oh, 315, 315. That's the Central New York area code. That must mean he's going to Buffalo." It's like, I love that. That's such a fun game to play. But then as soon as the new league year starts, he's like, "Nope, Cardinals. See ya. Sorry, no more fun."
Yeah, and I think, Dan, obviously you're, pissed off, and I think most Buffalo Bills fans don't like to be teased, and J.J. Watt wound up not going there. But Brennan, especially for Green Bay, that's his home base. That's returning to Wisconsin, and instead he goes to the warm weather of Arizona. That's got to be a dagger in the heart.
In the back.
In the back. Not even in the heart.
We're almost at the Ides of March, and I can feel it, okay?
So there you go. And Watt, a 2-year, $28 million deal. 23 of those $28 million guaranteed in his deal. And Dan mentioned it in his point about the Bills. There was other destinations that theoretically would have made, if Watt were to go there, would make them even more a Super Bowl contender. Now Arizona, who was probably predicted to be a playoff team for this upcoming season, is amplified by this move, but maybe not to the championship level that the Packers and Bills would have been lifted to if J.J. Watt were coming to their team. Another news story.
Cleveland, too.
Yeah,
the Browns,
as well.
Because they were the odds-on favorite. And I think at one point they were plus 135, which that's very good odds for free agency. And,
yes.
and Cleveland sports have just they've been on a run, and it's not a good one.
Yeah. Absolutely. And now we'll go to another team that hasn't had a lot of great press recently, and it's the Washington football team, and they have cut ties with quarterback Alex Smith. It will save $14.9 million of cap for the quarterback, and Dwayne Haskins was obviously out of town as well. So hopefully Taylor Heineke's the starter for Washington.
He's the future. Taylor Heineke is the future of the NFL.
A boy could dream, but I'm sure Washington will. This is a move to maybe draft a quarterback. Maybe Deshaun Watson makes his home in the nation's capital, or really Landover, Maryland. But, they're the Washington football team. But Alex Smith, he had this heroic comeback, and you could look at the recent documentary with Alex Smith and multiple articles online about how hard the recovery was just to make it on a football field. And then you look at his stats from last year, pretty amazing with what he was capable of doing. He was a less mobile quarterback, and the team around him, even though Washington was a playoff team, but believe it or not, this season, wasn't really, I would say, a great team, a great offensive line. And Alex Smith tried his hardest in multiple games where he came in, was hurt, would come back in, and then was re-injured. Luckily not to that leg in which he sustained the almost career-ending injury to. But it's a tough thing to see. Obviously, the NFL is a cutthroat business, but it's not the end of how you wanted the Alex Smith story to go. I don't think it would have resulted in a Super Bowl victory, but a playoff start would have been nice, or a great walk-off moment for his career. Instead, he will now hit the free agency market, and teams will, I would think a team would give him a shot, but obviously he's not the same Alex Smith of old, but I would think a team would bring him in, even if it's for a backup or mentor role. But as of right now, Alex Smith not on an NFL team, and it's tough. He cut from Washington, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. Any thoughts on that, guys? And again, Taylor Heineke might get the starting role. That's, I guess, the one positive you could look at this deal.
Yeah, when you look, and when you were talking, I was looking at some mock drafts. Washington doesn't have a great pick to be able to pick up a quarterback.
No.
Like, there's those quarterbacks that are obviously going to go at the top of the draft. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, and then maybe Trey Lance. They're probably all going to go in the top 10. Then you have what's his name from Matt. You have Mac Jones, who's going to be probably a late first rounder, but he doesn't fit in at 19, where the football team, where Washington is. So I don't know what they do if they're confident in Taylor Heineke. Hey, go ahead. He almost beat the eventual Super Bowl champion. So if that's something that you look at and you say that's a positive step, maybe go out and draft a wide receiver. There's a ton in this first round. There's a ton of first round talent on the offensive side of the ball. So I don't hate this move. Obviously, you feel bad for a guy who came back and won Comeback Player of the Year. And his story is going to be a story that is told for a long time in the NFL. Just due to his dedication to the game as a whole. I mean, the man almost died because of the infection in his leg, and then decided, hey, I'm not going to retire. I'm going to come back and play football. And then came back and started a few games. So obviously that's a great story, and it's something that is going to be pretty legendary. But obviously, when an injury like that happens, you don't come back playing at the same level. And Alex Smith was kind of a plug-and-play quarterback anyway, where, he got drafted ahead of Aaron Rodgers, but he definitely doesn't play better than Aaron Rodgers. So, I don't hate the move. It saves Washington a lot of money to be able to go out and maybe try and pick up some guys who can help Taylor Heineke in the offensive end. But, you just hate to see a guy like that get cut from any team.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that Alex Smith doesn't deserve the Comeback Player of the Year, but, he did get it for literally coming back and playing this year. Breaking a limb is one of those things that you can kind of do, and his leg was not kind of broken. We talk about the fact that he did almost die from this, and the man came back and played NFL football. As inspiring and as that is, it's also completely insane. So, I think we're very lucky that this story ended with him going out and playing, and then eventually leaving healthy. I think that, it would have been nice to see him go out and win a playoff game and do a lot. I totally agree with that. It would have been nice to have a happier ending to this. But the fact that he is still in good health, I'm not going to ask too much of this narrative. He's still alive. So I'm going to say, he definitely deserves Comeback Player of the Year. And Alex Smith, thank you for your service as an NFL fan. I don't want to see you out in the field again. Please do not get hurt. Thanks for playing football. Definitely.
When he made his return, and that was against the New York Giants this season, I felt this sort of nervousness for him. Not because, the genuine fan where it's like, oh, he's going to drive down the field and beat my team, but more, how is this injury going to, hold up? And obviously, Giants and Washington have a history of a terrible leg injury happening. And, of course, that enters through your mind. But luckily, again, Alex Smith really played a very good second half in what was a very close Giants win. But Washington did come back and in that game due to Alex Smith's performance in the second half. And he looked good. And, again, as Dan mentioned, the fact that he even came back this year is something to definitely tout.
Right, the injury, and just quickly before we finish this, the injury was almost exactly the same as the Joe Theismann injury, and that ended his career. So for him to come back and play at all, obviously huge. And you have to imagine there's some team who needs a veteran backup. So you have to think he's going to get signed somewhere. Will he play? Probably not. Will he be able to be a pseudo coach on the sideline for a young guy? Sure. I mean, he was that for Patrick Mahomes, and we've seen how that was worked out.
Absolutely. And one quick story on the NFL, and then we'll shift to another league in football. But Dan, your thoughts on Micah Hyde getting extended a 2-year, $19.25 million deal? Is Hyde a piece that's going to help the Bills this season go from AFC Championship to in the Super Bowl?
Well, the Bills definitely need to keep Micah Hyde around. I'm very happy that they did last season. He combined for 70 sacks, 48 by himself, and 22 assists. And that's important because the position that he plays is very far behind the defensive line. So if he doesn't tackle that person, no one does. So I'm very happy that we're going to keep him around. Micah Hyde, please stay in Buffalo. We love you. Don't leave.
So there you go. Yep.
In Green Bay. Micah Hyde, former Packer.
There you go. And Brennan, in terms of another comeback, which we talked on Alex Smith, there's another comeback to the fan-controlled football league.
Yeah, our boy Josh Gordon is coming back. He's one of those guys where every year he comes back and signs for one team, and then I inevitably pick him up in fantasy, hoping that he's going to have a breakout year, and then he plays like 1 or 2 games, and then he gets cut again. But Josh Gordon is back with the Zappers, I want to say, of the Fan Control Football League. Yes, thank you. The team owned by legendary Instagram play-by-play guy. What's his name? Bob Menery. If you don't follow him on Instagram, go check him out because it's absolutely hilarious. He owns the team. This is also the team that is helmed at quarterback by Money Manziel, Mr. Johnny Manziel himself. So I don't know if Josh Gordon, who has had a history of being suspended from the NFL for drug infractions, for smoking weed before he takes drug tests, I don't know if him joining Johnny Manziel on a team where in a post-game press conference, Johnny himself said, even when we lose, we booze, is a great idea, but it's going to be awesome for ratings. And Josh Gordon is one of those guys where when all is said and done and he ends up retiring from the league, we're going to look back and say, what happened to that guy? Because there was a season where on the Cleveland Browns, who won 2 games, Josh Gordon led the NFL in receiving yards, and I believe had over, I don't want to say he had over 2,000, but I know that he had a ton of yards. And he is a guy who kind of got screwed by the NFL, where his infractions now, based on the rules that are in place now as far as marijuana, he would not have gotten suspended in years past. So it's going to be fun. I think the Fan Control Football League is something that is going to be on the rise. I think that it's a lot of fun and is a little bit more sustainable than a lot of the other football leagues that we've seen, whether it be the XFL or the AAF. And I think that having names like Johnny Manziel and Josh Gordon on the same team is a good thing to have for a blossoming league.
I'm sure the Zappers post-game parties will be eventful, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, they will. I'm trying to catch an invite because that would be electric.
Well, I don't think they're fan control parties, unfortunately, Brennan. So you might have to find some connections to get in there.
Zoom party.
Okay, there you go. All right. When we come back, we will pay homage to 2 hockey legends that we recently lost, as well as our MVP of the week, and of course our Sunday game picks. Don't go anywhere. You're watching and listening to the MVP show.
Hey besties, if you love VIC Radio as much as we do, you want to know what's going on in the studio, or you want to stay in the VIC loop, why not follow us on our Twitter at VIC Radio and our Instagram, which is also at VIC Radio. Keep listening to the best of What's Next, your favorite indie music station.
VIC Radio is the voice of Ithaca College. Here's a campus organization you can get involved in.
Want to help bring a little more love to your campus community? IC Random Acts of Kindness Club meets every Monday from 8 to 9 p.m. in the Business School, room 104. Stop by to socialize, participate in fun events, get creative, and be kind. For more information, please email randomactsofkindnessic@gmail.com.
Want to get your organization's message on the air? Email community@vicradio.org to connect with the Campus Community Involvement Director.
Welcome back to the MVP show. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on VIC Radio, alongside Brennan Miller and Dan Passante, I'm John Vicari. And now we'll talk about 2 hockey legends that we lost this week. Starting first with Walter Gretzky, known as the father of Wayne Gretzky, the GOAT, the great one, number 99. And Walter Gretzky was obviously a huge influence in Wayne's not only hockey life, of course, and his hockey development, but his life in general, in terms of books and stories you could read on Walter Gretzky. Really great dad by most and all accounts. He built a hockey rink in his backyard for his son to practice on, and at a young age instilled hockey IQ, which is something that I think parents who want to get their kids into any sport should preach, because in this day and age, obviously, parents may, in my opinion, sometimes get too overzealous when trying to coach their young kids. Obviously, most of the time, good intentions because they want them to succeed, but I think go a step too far. But in terms of properly teaching your kid, it's not so much trying to get them physically fit at a young age, it's teaching them how the game works. Walter Gretzky was the one who taught Wayne Gretzky to skate where the puck is going, not where the puck is at. and many things in terms of hockey IQ that at a young age separates, even if you're not the fastest skater or the biggest person on the ice, there's a separation there because you know more than the players you're going up against. In terms of Walter Gretzky with his charitable life, there was the Canada National Institute for the Blind, and this is actually, I think, a really cool story where Wayne Gretzky, when he was 19 years old, was talking with two boys who were blind, and they recognized him just because of his voice and hearing it, watching hockey games or on the news. So Wayne was inspired by that, and Walter Gretzky, for most of his life with the Canada Institute for the Blind, had a huge role, and they set up hockey tournaments to benefit that. And a lot of celebrities that were hockey players and just, mainstream celebrities in Canada were involved in those tournaments as well, and all for a good cause. So Walter Gretzky passed away at the age of 82, and of course the father of Wayne Gretzky, as I mentioned at the top. And yeah,
he's the ultimate hockey dad, right? Like you think of that person who, or not even hockey dad, but ultimate sports dad, where your kid has a passion and you are more than willing to help them be the best that they possibly can at that passion. And I have a dad like that myself, who saw that I was a big fan of baseball, mostly due to the fact that he is the baseball coach at my high school, but that had a lot to do with it. But always more than willing to come out and hit me ground balls, or swing the wiffle ball bat if possible. That being said, I don't have a hockey mom because when I was very young, I asked if I could play hockey, and her response was, "No, there's no chance in hell that I'm waking up for a 5 a.m. ice time." So that's that. But no, obviously, you have to pay your respects to a man who did more for the game of hockey than a lot of people have even considered doing. And obviously, being the father of the great one kind of makes you the greatest one. And died passed away at an old age. So I'm sure that he lived a life that he's proud of, and that's really all that matters.
Absolutely. And now we'll touch on a recent death, and this was reported Friday. And at this time of this recording and when we are doing the show, we don't know the full extent to the cause of death. So if something did come out, we don't want to speculate this and that. So we just want to preface that by going in to this. But Mark Pavelich passed away. He was 63 years old, and he was remembered as the member of the 1980 Miracle on Ice Team USA team. In the game against the Soviet Union, he had 2 assists, including to Micah Hyde, the jersey that Brennan is holding up right now, for the game-winning goal. Mark Pavelich also played for the Rangers for 5 seasons, was in the NHL for 7 seasons in total, but after the Rangers only played 14 games, most notably with the Minnesota North Stars. And Pavelich still holds the record for the most points as a rookie in New York Rangers history with 76. He scored 5 goals in a game in 1983 against the Hartford Whalers. It was 11-3, and a story my dad would tell me because he was at that game, and they handed out Marlboro hats, red hats, and of course, because Pavelich scored 5 goals, 3 warrants a hat trick and warrants the fans throwing their hats onto the ice. And because everyone got a free hat that they, didn't mind not leaving with unless someone wanted as a collectible, they just covered the ice. And a great story there in terms of Mark Pavelich. Later in his life, though, and a really of recent time, he was arrested in 2019 for assaulting his neighbor. There was 4 counts in total for what he was arrested for. He was in front of the courts in 2019 and in 2020 before the pandemic, and the courts deemed him mentally ill. And, not that the charges were dropped by any means, but the jail time, or any charges going further was not really laid out. He was put into a rehab facility, and that is where he passed away. Again, the cause of the death is unknown at this time. And it's obviously a tough, just a tough thing all around. A really, really great article in the New York Post, and I think one of the best reads in sports of 2020 was Brett Segrist of the New York Post, and he did a profile on Mark Pavelich, and he did not get Pavelich for the profile, but got people in Pavelich's life. And it was about a story from his youth and him being just really throughout his career a close and reserved guy. And just, the thought process of Mark Pavelich on a day-to-day basis, and I think is a really good read. So if you want to, learn more about this, then I think it's a good resource. And when I heard the news, I was devastated. Again, it was my dad's favorite player growing up. He was 5'8", a short center who would go into the corners and, and throw his body around, and was a player who really played hard every time he was out on the ice. And it's sad how later, in life those events happened, and, he died suddenly at 63. So, but just wanted to, mention that on the show today, along with Walter Gretzky, because, again, too, in terms of a New York perspective with the Rangers, two connections there as well in hockey. So, and I think anyone, even if they're not the biggest hockey fans, whenever there's someone or a new story involving the Miracle on Ice team, their ears sort of peer up, because it's a story that everyone knows. Most people, even if they're not hockey fans, know the Miracle on Ice team in some capacity. So I wanted to mention that as well. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, the MVP of the week, as well as our game picks for the NBA All-Star Sunday. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the MVP show on VIC Radio and watching on YouTube.
VIC Radio is the voice of Ithaca College. Here's a campus organization you can get involved in.
Want to help bring a little more love to your campus community? IC Random Acts of Kindness Club meets every Monday from 8 to 9 p.m. in the Business School, room 104. Stop by to socialize, participate in fun events, get creative, and be kind. For more information, please email randomactsofkindnessic@gmail.com.
Want to get your organization's message on the air? Email community@vicradio.org to connect with the Campus Community Involvement Director.
Hey besties, if you love VIC Radio as much as we do, you want to know what's going on in the studio, or you want to stay in the VIC loop, why not follow us on our Twitter @VIC Radio and our Instagram, which is also @VIC Radio. Keep listening to the best of What's Next, your favorite indie music station.
Welcome back to the MVP show. Miller, Vicari, and Passante on YouTube and VIC Radio Ithaca. And what's coming up right now, the MVP of the week. This is where we pick a person or something that had a great week. This could be sports, pop culture, news, entertainment, really no bounds for our MVP of the week selection. And Dan, I really want to go to you first here, because when you mentioned, and this is an instance in which I knew Dan's MVP of the week before we were on air. But Dan, I think you have to lead us off with your MVP of the week.
Yeah, so I did think of my MVP while we were prepping for the show today, so I put it in the document for everyone to view because it's necessary. First of all, my runner-up MVP this week is Aliens, because Baker Mayfield saw them, and that's awesome. My anti, do I want to get to my anti first?
Yes.
I think, sure. I'll get to my anti-MVP first. Maroon 5 is my anti-MVP, specifically Adam Levine, because this week he said that there are no more bands anymore. Adam Levine, you clearly don't listen to 92 WICB in the basement of the Ithaca Park School because you don't know that there are plenty of amazing bands out there. Maroon 5 is not around anymore. I'm not going to say why, but maybe because no one wants to hear them anymore. I don't know. My MVP this week, however, does go to the Wiggles because, they should be my MVP every week. But this week, they covered Elephant by Tame Impala, a great band, Adam Levine, that you should listen to. And it's fantastic. The fact that Tame Impala went from this crazy, out of this world indie guy to now in the pop scene where the Wiggles are doing his songs, incredible people. They also did Fruit Salad with it, so yes. You need to watch this, is what I'm saying. The Wiggles, you're the MVP.
Fruit salad. Oh, yummy, yummy. Yeah, that's absolutely a banger from the Wiggles. I'll go next. My MVP of the week, I have a secondary MVP of the week because I don't want to give him too much credit. But my secondary MVP of the week is Gavin Miller because he played his first Division III volleyball game on Saturday as a member of the number 8 ranked, I think, St. John Fisher Cardinals squad. So he'll be my sub MVP of the week. in case, the starter can't perform. But the starter is absolutely Space Jam and LeBron James, because we saw pictures, the first official pictures of Space Jam 2, and I am absolutely hyped. Is it going to be as good as the original? Absolutely not. But is it going to be a basketball movie starring LeBron James and Bugs Bunny? Yes, it is. And that is what I'm excited for. Yeah, and this jersey is unfortunately not Jordan. It's Bugs. It was for a Halloween costume that I never wore. So I, keep it. I'm a big jersey guy, if you can't tell, with, the Eruzione and the Bugs Bunny jersey. But that's my MVP of the week, because I'm hyped for Space Jam, no matter how good it's going to be.
You really put Space Jam the original with Jordan on a high pedestal for it being a good movie. By the way, I think nostalgia kicks in. I agree, but I mean, I would think that the LeBron movie in terms of plot would have to be better. You would hope.
What plot?
I don't know. Do you remember the plot of the first one?
Yeah, man.
What was the plot?
Okay. You put me on the spot here.
What's the plot of the first movie? Because I can tell you.
But the aliens come down and they take the skills of the basketball players because they want to make them attractions in their amusement park. So Jordan has to play against them to be able to save, the human race, obviously.
Sure. Do you know where that takes place, by the way, when Jordan gets sucked into the wormhole?
The golf course in Chicago.
No, not that.
Florida.
Not that. I mean, where did he play the aliens?
That I don't know.
Not in space, so the title makes no sense. He got sucked into the underground. He's not in space. But the movie, in terms of pure nostalgia, is awesome. I'm a fan of the movie. I'm just saying, in terms of plot, if hopefully they come up with a little something better than what they did.
Top five basketball movie.
Wow. I probably have to agree. I don't think I could think. I don't know. Maybe I would have to think a little harder, but it would be in my top 5 in terms. Again, not in terms of like inspiration. I'm sure there's a lot of inspirational basketball movies out there. And if you
I'm not putting it up there with Coach Carter.
Well, that's what I'm saying, or Hoop Dreams or anything like that. But yeah.
You got to bring it up. I mean, it's like asking, what are your top 5 ogre movies? It's Shrek 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 5 that haven't been made
That's
yet.
exactly what I'm saying.
Those are your top 5 ogre movies, okay? So, Space Jam has to be in your basketball one.
Oh.
Absolutely.
By the way, this week I'm really ashamed because I thought I had a great MVP, and it's probably the worst of the 3. Preface it by that, but my MVP of the week is Shaquille O'Neal. This is sort of similar to Brennan's, where it's a basketball player crossing over into something, and it was Shaquille O'Neal crossing over into AEW, All Elite Wrestling on TNT, a little cross promotion. And sure, Shaq has entered the squared circle. He did so in, I believe, 2008, 2009 with WWE. But with AEW, he competed in an actual match with top guys in their company, and Cody Rhodes pretty much, it was a cross body over the top rope to get technical here, but Shaq went through 2 tables onto the pavement, a pretty big bump for someone who could have easily just, gotten the paycheck and really didn't even take that big of a bump, and it would have been fine. Instead, Shaquille O'Neal took a nasty fall, and I give him props for it. He's 7 foot tall, Shaq. He's an imposing figure in terms of in the wrestling world.
Yeah, I was going to say, think about the force going through those tables. That man is like 7 foot tall, 300 pounds. Like, that could kill like a deer if he was underneath it. Like, that's a lot of weight.
Yes, and that's why, again, Shaq is my MVP of the week. Not only for willing to get in the squared circle, and I think there was interest there. I don't think TNT was like, oh, we got to get somebody, and they went to Charles Barkley, and that would be hilarious if they did, because I think he'd be like, no, that's terrible. I'm not gonna wrestle. That's terrible. But and knowing Charles Barkley's thoughts on football, which, by the way, as a high school student, he played it for a day, and then he said, this is the stupidest thing that I've ever done, and quit football immediately, and then pivoted to basketball, which was a good career move looking back. But I don't think anyone on TNT would be eager to do so. And Shaq made the most of it. Again, it could have been a joke, and obviously was brought in there for basketball fans to check AEW out on Wednesday night. But the fact that he took an actual bump is my MVP of the week. And again, I think was a great selection. But compared to Brennan and compared to Dan, I think I am in third for this week. Hopefully, though, I'm not third in our picks, which are coming up right now. Our Sunday game picks. We are pretty much focusing on the NBA All-Star Weekend. And Dan, you could run it down. You got the odds. You got us all set. I can't tell you that my picks are going to be because I think that's who's going to win. It's probably pretty much who I'm going to root for. And to be honest, there's odds out there. I think most of these events are just toss-ups. But Dan, NBA All-Star Sunday, let's do the picks.
First competition is the NBA Skills Challenge, featuring Luka Doncic, Chris Paul, Domantas Sabonis, Robert Covington, Nikola Vucevic, and Julius Randle. The Vegas favorite is Luka Doncic. Randle is plus 800. Obviously, not very close to the favorite. I am going to go with Robert Covington because the Sixers are having a fantastic season, and he's a really good all-around player. So I think he might be a little bit of a sleeper. So, Rocco, I got you with the Skills Challenge. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll go next. I'm thinking I really can't say, and I think, first off, let me preface this. This is the one event that's a huge toss-up because there's different levels of it. You have to pass it through a circle. You have to hit a three-pointer, and your dribbling comes into play as well. Julius Randle, I understand, is plus 800, but the Knicks have been craving for attention on All-Star Weekend. They not only get Randle, but in the next segment or coming up, we'll do the dunk contest, there's a New York Knick there as well. And I think Randle will make the most of it, and he will win the skills competition. It's always somebody who you don't really picture. Like, I think of all people, Chris Paul, who I believe is in the event, or who you rattled off, that would make sense for him to win it. But no, I think it's going to be Julius Randle, and that is not a pick based on any conviction, but just based on the randomness of what this event is. So that's why I'm going with JR for this pick.
Chris Paul. He's who I'm going to go with.
Nice.
Almost exclusively because John said he's not going to win.
Wow.
No, that's not the reason. The reason is because, when I think of people with skills in the NBA, I think of Chris Paul. No, he's just like when you think of one of those names and you're like, who's a good passer in the NBA? Like Chris Paul is the first guy that comes to your mind. And that's really the only reason. Just because I know that he racks up assists and he's pretty high in the assist leaderboard, I think, as far as all time. I have to imagine. And I only know that because I hosted So You Think You Know Sports last semester. But yeah, that's who I'm going with. Chris Paul plus 225. He's second best odds behind Luka Doncic at 200. Next up is the NBA three-point contest, Dan.
Yes, the NBA three-point contest, which Chris Paul will not be in. He probably will be shooting a State Farm commercial, which he leads that category as well, most State Farm commercials. The NBA three-point contest is pretty self-explanatory. Who can make the most three-pointers in the contest? Steph Curry is the favorite. Devin Booker is also featured in this contest. Donovan Mitchell, Zach LaVine, and the two Celtics, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, will also be competing. As far as my pick goes, of course I want the Celtics to win because I am a Celtics fan, but I'm going to take Donovan Mitchell because, to be honest with you, I feel kind of bad that he got roasted by Joel Embiid the other night, and I think he's going to want to, show off in a national stage. And he's also a fantastic player that I don't think gets as much respect as he should. So I'm going to take Donovan Mitchell in a three-point competition.
I may be similar to someone else, meaning Brennan Miller in my pick, but I cannot, in my heart of hearts, pick against Steph Curry. The guy is the greatest shooter of all time. I just can't do it. I don't think, too, he has a great track record in these events. I don't think he's won one in his career. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I do remember one three-point contest. He has one, of course. So there was one event where he disappointed, and I was like, wow, Curry did not have a good night. But I can't pick against him. I just can't. And now knowing that Brennan said he has one in his back pocket, can't pick against Steph Curry, even though, of course, his brother is having a better season in terms of shooting percentage only, of course, but in terms of three-point shooting percentage. But my pick will be Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, he won in 2015.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm going with Steph, too. Steph don't miss. He's absolutely filthy from beyond the arc. That's the one thing that he does. So why would he not win a competition to claim to be the best at the thing that he's the best at?
So to recap, people, we have the two people taking the greatest shooter of all time, arguably, and me taking Donovan Mitchell because he got made fun of by Joel Embiid.
Yes.
Let's move on to the NBA dunk contest. That will be the third event taking place before the All-Star game on Sunday night. We have Obi Toppin, the New York Knicks, as the favorite, plus 150. other people competing, Anthony Simmons of the Blazers and Cassius Stanley of the Pacers. I had to say the team names because I wasn't 100% sure myself going into this where those guys were. They're relatively young, I believe, in the league. I want to see Obi Toppin win. Come on, man. Throw the Knicks a bone. Even if, he doesn't get one down, put Patrick Ewing on that desk and give him a 10 every single time. I'm rooting for it, man. I'm so happy the Knicks are getting good, even though I'm not a fan. Please, Obi Toppin, get out there and do something awesome.
I'm in agreement. You got to go Obi-Wan. Obi Toppin, dunk contest champion. Nate Robinson, the last Knick that I could recall being in the event, has great success, and that's, I think, really the basis of picking it. It's also because, again, it's a New York Knicks. So Obi Toppin, like I picked Randall, and Brennan has the Nate Robinson jersey out and about. Brennan, who's your pick?
I wore this when he got knocked out, too. So that was great optics for me. Now I'm going to go with Obi, too, because I have no projection of who's actually going to win this. I know that Dominique Wilkins is one of the judges, which is going to be awesome because, he's probably one of the greatest dunkers of all time. And obviously, he would go head-to-head with Jordan in the dunk contest when we actually had stars in the dunk contest. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Obi, too. Why not? New York basketball is somewhat back. So, well, let's keep the train rolling here.
And finally, we have the NBA All-Star Game taking place. Team LeBron versus Team Durant. Team Durant is +4 to win. I could name off all the players, but it was a draft, and that would take quite a while. So I'm just going to tell you to take Team LeBron because Team Durant is not going to have Kevin Durant. He's injured, and so is Anthony Davis. LeBron has him and Giannis, and they're both starting, and who's going to guard them with both of those two out? So I'm taking Team LeBron in the All-Star Game.
Yeah, I'm surprised the number is so low on this. It's Team LeBron -4, and I guess that's because, as Brennan alluded to in our top segment, the scoring system. But I got to go with Team LeBron here. Again, if Kevin Durant was in the picture, maybe it'd be a different story, but I got to be riding with Team LeBron.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I think that it's when I first looked at this and looked at the spread, I have Team LeBron to cover, absolutely. And I think that bodes poorly for the end of the game. I think that, you would love to see a close finish in an All-Star game, but I just think that the talent is too widely separated. So I got Team LeBron by more than 4 points. And okay, that's going to finish that. I had originally put in the doc, our next pick was going to be number 18, Texas Tech, versus number 3, Baylor, which is a good game and probably the best game on the Sunday slate. But I'm just going to skip that because Baylor's probably going to win, and it was just going to be me rambling about, for some reason, I like Texas Tech. Instead, I want to ask John, because now I'm curious, and Dan, I know that you have to have an opinion on this as well. What's your because we've mentioned a bunch of movies in this show so far, John and Dan, what are your favorite sports movies?
This is tough. I think this has to be a full segment. We've touched on this before in terms of talking about it because we talked about a league of this was 2 semesters ago too, with talking about a league of their own and where it stands in baseball movies and in sports movies in general. I don't want to go full into this.
Top one. Just fire it off.
I can't because Rocky's there, Rudy's there. They are, Brennan.
I know.
So
Underclothes there.
I can't. I think this has to be a full segment somewhere down the line. Probably not next week because it's Selection Sunday. Dan, before we have to sign off here, give me if you have one.
Very quickly, under Nacho Libre, I think all of those are very good picks. We're gonna have to make this a full segment for sure.
Absolutely. And that's a reason to tune in. That is a reason to tune in. And Brennan, that really worst time to ask that question.
I know.
Up against the clock.
I thought you would just throw something out there quick because I think mine's Miracle, and I'm willing to say that.
Absolutely. Well, this has been an eventful MVP show here on YouTube and VIC Radio Ithaca. Coming up next on VIC is Follow the Herd. For Brennan Miller and Dan Passante, I'm John Vicari. Thanks for tuning in.